10 things, because it was something that nobody ever done, and we were the first to do it. And it was a pretty neat thing to run. I was running a 91 McCulloch on an enduro cart, which is the type of cart you lay down in. And we probably ran 90 something mile an hour. I'd say, maybe close to 100 on the straightaways, but
wow,
it was fast. When you're that young and that it seemed a whole lot faster than it probably was when you're that young. But it was a good show.
And Mackie was talking about, Phil, that these Unlimited All-Stars, and these guys very well because they normally run up at King of the Concrete. And I remember one that I did a few years ago announcing that event where we had one of the guys, I'll never forget the word, me and my friend Lauren, we called it flaming debris. The chain guard broke off of the cart, and off the Unlimited All-Star karting machine, and he still continued racing until the chain guard broke, but it got so hot it melted and caught fire, and he had a shower of sparks erupt from the back end of the chassis, and that was the highlight of the night. That was so cool to see that. That was 2 Unlimited All-Stars on the track, but it was so cool to see that and witness it.
Yeah, if they run Unlimited All-Stars this race at Charlotte, and I don't really know if they are or not, but if they do, that will be worth the price of admission just to go see that race in itself, because I can only imagine how fast that they'll be running. Because there's talk of next year, and I've actually talked to Clay Campbell myself, along with John Philpott, about They're going to run an Unlimited All-Star race at Martinsville on the same track they run the cars on. Wow. And I can imagine how fast. I think they'll be faster than the Cup cars are personally. So if they run them this weekend, I don't think they'll be as fast as the dirt cars, will, but they'll be mighty fast because the fact they're running on the flat part of the track, that's something I think is going to. I think that one thing right there may throw a lot of people a curve because, if you were there yesterday, you seen how Mackie's fixing the track and it's around the very bottom, and it's probably going to be very much banking right there. So it's if you run up on the bank and you'll be running a lot faster, but you're still going to be running plenty fast.
And I can tell you also, talking with Mackie, Phil, he is going to try to add banking to the racetrack. Obviously, what all can you do whenever you are just on a flat surface apron of the speedway like at Charlotte? Because obviously he's got a lot of work to do. He's got a lot of work to do, and then the weathers don't help matters any. I mean, like I said, we left and it started falling a flood, storming yesterday. It's supposed to rain off and on today. So, a lot of people don't realize this. Phil. You got to have the perfect storm for just doing track prep right, basically.
Yeah, Mackie's got his hands full. The fact that they've never done this, and, you're racing on dirt that they don't usually race on to begin with. And, it's going to be, I'm going to say, and all the stuff that Mackie's ever done, all the racetracks he's ever done, and Mackie does a tremendous job wherever he goes. I've seen him come to Paradise one time on the racetrack. You couldn't keep it together. It was tearing apart, and Mackie came through a tri-state race and worked on it for about a half a week, and it's the best it's ever been. And he does do a great job. But I will say it's going to be a handful because, you're dealing with such a huge amount of dirt compared to what you would be at, say, Nice's or any other track, Hanging Rock or Liberty or wherever. You take that and you multiply it times 10, and you just got a lot of one lap around that thing and I was watching your video, one lap on a motor grader probably take you 10 minutes, where one lap on a motor grader at Liberty will take you 2 minutes, so, but he'll do good, he'll have it in good shape. Like you say, if the weather cooperates, because it just kind of big rain up here where I'm at just a little bit ago, and now it's quit completely, but we're supposed to have storms on and off,
yes,
I think all the way through Saturday. So, but I'm just proud that WK is trying to get this thing going again, because at one point in time, the North American Karting Championship, this is back in the days when they used to have the Briggs 300 on the oval where they run the Legends car races. I mean, there was people there from not only the United States, all over the world would come in for this thing. It was unbelievable how many people would come. And I mean, you'd see drivers that they'd be in tractor trailer rigs and all, and it was amazing. But it's for the people that have never seen a big go-kart race, it will be worth going to see this weekend, I can promise you.
Phil, where do you see kart racing at now as we go into the 21st, into the 2020 century, the new decade, from where it's been?
I've seen kart racing really change more in probably the last 5 years than I've seen it change. I started racing go-karts. I'm going to give my age away on this kind of. I started racing go-karts in 1970, and which is nearly 50 years ago. And I've seen it change more in the last 5 years because it seems to be now that once a kid, and you got to have kids coming into the sport, and once the kids get old enough that they can reach the pedals in a race car, they're gone. I mean, their dad is putting them in an open wheel modified or a crate car or whatever that they choose. And but I tell you, we're going to have to get a hold of several things in karting if we're going to keep it strong. Everybody knows the problems, but nobody wants to fix it. And I'm not going to get into the politics of it, but I love karting, and I've had choices to do every kind of racing. I've drag raced in my life. I've raced a dirt car in my life. I raced at Daytona in 1982 in the Dash Series. And I've done a lot of stuff. But you see where I'm back. I love go-kart racing, and I want it to prosper, and I want it to do good. But it's kind of like sometimes I think the kart racing, a lot of things happen that we're our own worst enemy. We're doing things that's hurting karting that if somebody don't fix it, it's hard to get new people into it if they can't run and be competitive. And it's just kind of one of those things that's hard. It would be the same thing if you try to get in NASCAR.
Right.
You're not going to be able to compete with Hendricks, Gibbs, Rouse, these guys, because they are kind of like a monopoly over everything. Well, it's kind of go-kart racing's kind of got the same way. You've got certain teams that, these guys have got like 4 or 5 other people on their teams, so to speak, and you can't go in there and a one-off thing and think you're going to beat them, because it's not going to happen. I can promise. It ain't going to happen. And we've got to somehow or another, I'm not going to say get away from it, but we got to get a hold of it and change some things if we're going to keep it going.
Phil, you said that you raced at Daytona in 1982. I wasn't even thought of at that time.
Well, I've been so lucky. Wow. When you and I was talking yesterday, and I thought about this after we hung up. You was telling me how old you were, and the craziest thing is, I didn't even start announcing my first race until I was older than you. I'm serious. Wow. And I never announced my first race until 2000, which is 19 years ago.
How did you stumble into announcing? How did that happen, Phil? I mean, because you're one of the most respected, besides what Bobby Waltrip did as an announcer. And yes, a lot of people might not know, but Bobby Waltrip was the brother of Darrell and Michael Waltrip. He never was really into the racing scene much, but he was one of the most respected announcers of kart racing, passed away probably about almost a decade ago. You are respected in announcing kart racing in the industry, Phil. How did you get started? Was it dumb luck? Was it you needed to fill in somewhere? How did you get it?
No, it's the craziest thing you've ever heard of. They had just built a new track called Riverside Kartway,
okay,
and it was over in Cliffside. And a buddy of mine was actually the announcer there, and he was a great announcer, I thought. And had it going on good. And the next thing you know, I called and asked him one day, because he actually helps me with a lot of stuff that I restore. And I called him and asked him one day, I said, I'm thinking about coming to the race tonight. And he said, "Oh, that's good." I said, "I'll see you over there after a while." So I went, and I get there, and I stopped getting me something to eat on the way. And when I get to the track, they got the FM transmitter, and I put my radio on what station they were supposed to be on, and there was nobody saying anything. I thought, well, that seems mighty strange. Well, come to find out, he didn't show up for work. And so the guy that was a track promoter, he walked by where I was sitting in my car and eating, and he said, "Man, your buddy left me in a mess." Long story short, him and his wife was having some issues, and she didn't want to sit home every Saturday night, so he ended up quitting. Well, the guy asked me what I announced that night, and I said, "Heck no." I said, "I'm not announcing." I said, "I've never announced a race and don't plan on it." Well, then Bobby Geddes, who has been a friend of mine since I very first started racing go-karts. I used to race at his track every Saturday night, as a matter of fact. Bobby Geddes walked up into the conversation, and he said, "Phil," said, "why don't you help Doug out?" He said, "He's in a bind." He says, "You know nearly everybody here." He says, "You know how everything goes." He says, "Why don't you just do it and help him out tonight?" So I did. And at the end of the night, Doug's wife came over there and handed me an envelope to pay me. And I said, "You don't owe me anything." I said, "I did this as a favor." And she said, "No." She said, "Doug insisted that we pay you because he said you did Jimmy's job. So, you know, he paid me, and I came home, and I thought, well, you know, this is unusual. I said, this is one of the first times that I've ever come home with more money than I went to the racetrack with. You know, in racing,
right?
Even though you plan to come home with more than you left with, most times you don't.
That's right.
And so that night when I got home, I didn't even open my envelope, I don't think, till I got home. And so when I got home and opened it up, I had a surprise in it. He gave me $50. And so I thought, you know, that's pretty cool. I made $50 and I didn't plan on making. So he calls me the next week and says, well, said, Jimmy's quit. He says, would you announce the race for me this coming week? And I said, well, let me think on it. You know, so I did. I told him I would. And so he gave me a raise right off the bat just to get me to come, you know, to start doing all the time. and one thing led to another. And so then the very first year that they had the More Money Series race at Riverside,
right,
with James Moore, I never even met James Moore. But Doug, the guy that owned the track, convinced James that he needed to let me announce the race. So I announced the race for James. And, you know, at the end of the night, James and I become friends. And James, he opened more doors for me than any other person, bar none, that I've ever dealt with. Because James had a lot of connections with a lot of tracks. And he got me in places that I never would have got in otherwise. And so one thing led to another. And you're speaking about Bobby. You know, Bobby and I used to announce a lot of races together.
That's right.
And back in the day. And Bobby and I was really good friends. You know, I hate so bad what happened to Bobby did happen to him because, you know, it's just a shame. You know, you got Darrell and Michael Walker as your brother and everything, and it's just a shame the way that whole deal went down. But it's, you know, I guess you could call it dumb, what you said a minute ago. I hadn't planned on it, but, you know, you think about things that happen in your life that changes your life. There's so many things that happen in that one day that if they hadn't have fell into place, and I don't mean to sound like I'm preaching because I'm not. I think the good Lord handles a lot of stuff that you don't have control over.
Amen.
Because there's too many things that happened that day about me going to that particular race, which I had never even been to a race at that track until that day. Jimmy didn't show up. Bobby Geddes tossed me into announcing the race. One thing happens, it's just like a whole chain of events happened that got me into announcing, and you know, and I haven't stopped since that day. I mean, I haven't.
That's right.
And you know, I still enjoy it. I wish that things were different because I tell folks a lot of times that I said, you know, and this is in a lot of different forms of racing, asphalt, dirt, go-karts, whatever. I said, we've seen the best days. And I really think we have, you know, because the times have changed so much in every form of racing.
Right.
But go-kart racing at one time, and you can ask the people that know anything about WKA, at one point in time, the race that they had at Daytona, they would have 200 people trying to make a 30-cart field. And, you know, we're never, ever going to see that again.
Right.
But we just need to try to take what we've got and at least keep what we've got and not lose any more because, you know, go-kart racing, you can look at any form of, I'm talking about IndyCar, go-kart, sprint cars. There's so many of the top drivers that came from go-kart racing. It's the perfect training ground as far as people learning the basics on, you know, how to race, you know, how to do this, how to do that. And it's the perfect scenario. It is. It's the perfect thing to learn the basics. And then if you choose to go to the next step, you know, what you've got to do is just figure out what you want to do. And I'm going to use Eric Riggins Jr. as one person.
There you go.
And sprint cars, and Chris Ferguson and late models.
Yes.
And then I'll take Bobby McCarty and asphalt late models. All these guys used to race against each other. They chose 3 different routes to go. They've all 3 been successful in what they've done, but they all came from the same place, go-kart racing.
That's right. Yeah, and another guy, look at Brandon Pierce, who drives for Lee Pulliam as well. He started in karting as well, won the King of the Concrete. You know, he's another one of those drivers. Brandon Overton, a matter of fact, that we have scheduled for finish line today, who won the USA 100, his second USA 100 at Virginia Motor Speedway. He's won it, of course, Cochran earlier this year. He's won big races on the Outlaws, Lucas Oil, marquee events. He started in karting. So the Foundation of Motorsports matches their nickname for WKA. You know, Phil, the Foundation of Motorsports is karting. That's where you start. That's the stepping stone.
It really is. I mean, you can go like to Ricky Rudd in NASCAR, Tony Stewart, Kevin Harvick. I mean, you get out the list of names and check off everyone that raced go-karts at one point in time in their life.